Hey, it's Bill here again with the second of our series of tutorials on jazz piano for absolute beginners. Like in the first tutorial, we've got an easy piano improvisation for you to learn and challenge yourself with. There's also a bunch of new jazz and music theory concepts to understand, and later on in the tutorial, I'm going to give you some insights into how improvisation works at a mental level. First off, if you haven't seen the first tutorial in the series, go and check it out either now or after you've watched this one, especially if you're brand new to jazz piano and music theory in general. There are links in the description right below this video. Okay, so let's look at today's improvisation exercise. Like last time, I'm going to think about the left hand first. We're in the key of C major, and to start with, we're going to use just two hand positions in the left. This one and this one. Now what I'm doing there is playing two shell chords. Shells are a really useful thing in jazz piano because they help you to suggest a chord, to hint at it if you like, in a way that a listener's ear can make sense of, but they save you having to play full chords in the left hand because they can sound muddy and unclear. Yeah. So what we've got here is a shell chord, first of all, that suggests C major 7. Okay, the chord of C major 7, and then one that suggests the chord of F7. We're basically going to alternate them. I want you to keep them nice and slow and chilled out. We're after a kind of cool but slightly bluesy feel. I'm not going to tie you to a specific number of beats per chord, okay? Yeah, just change when you feel like it, when you want a change in sound. Now let's think about the right hand. In the first tutorial in the series, I mentioned the scale of A minor pentatonic. The key of C major has a pentatonic scale too, and we're going to use it for improvising on today. It goes C, D, E, G, A. Yeah? C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, and so on, up and down the piano keyboard. So what we're going to do is improvise a little on that pentatonic scale over those left hand chords. We're also going to drop in and use a couple of notes from the C blues scale, E flat and B flat. I'll talk more about the blues scale in the next tutorial, but for now let's just add them in on top of our pentatonic. Okay, so the notes we have at our disposal for improvising are C, D, E flat, E, G, A, B flat, C. Okay, and so on and so forth, up and down the piano keyboard. Let's have a go. Now, if you find that a little difficult at first, and I don't expect that kind of fluency straight away at all, take it really slowly and maybe use the techniques we described in the first tutorial. In other words, start on just one note of the scale, maybe C. And then maybe move out to using two notes, let's say C and E. Then to three notes, maybe C, E and E flat. Okay, and move out and out until you're using the whole pentatonic scale plus the two blue notes. Yeah, it'll take a while, but take your time, take it steadily. If you're struggling with the rhythm, remember what we said in the last tutorial about focusing on the offbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you feel that pulse as you're going, you'll find it much easier to improvise those kind of swinging rhythms. Now, if you're really new to the piano, this is a good opportunity to play around with putting your thumb under, okay, and your fingers over in the right hand to help you get up and down the keyboard. If you're new to it, again, take it slowly and try it time and time again. Yeah, you're learning all the time you're doing this. If it feels like kind of really mental hard work, then that's good. That means your brain is making the effort to master this stuff. Let's give your fingers a rest for a minute and think about some of the music theory we've got going on here. Here's the full scale of C major. Now, any key has certain chords that appear naturally in that key. In major keys, we call these diatonic chords, and they're always based on the scale of the key. So here are the diatonic chords of C major. C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, and back to C. See how they're based on that scale? We can also number those chords, which makes it easier to compare things across keys and to talk about harmonic theory. So, in the key of C major, the number 1 chord is C. D minor is number 2, E minor is number 3, F is number 4, G number 5, A minor number 6, and B diminished number 7. They also all have technical names like tonic and dominant and subdominant and so on, but we don't need to kind of get too bogged down in those for now. The important thing to remember is that some chords are more common and more important than others. In particular, the 1 and 5 chords, tonic and dominant, that's C and G in the key of C major, are probably the most important. So far we've been using 1 and 4, C and F in the key of C major. We've actually been using them in extended form. Chord extensions that kind of develop and enrich the sounds of particular chords are absolutely central to jazz piano, and in fact to all jazz. Instead of regular C and regular F, we've just been using C major 7 and F7. Yeah, that's how they look in their full form. I'll be talking more about chord extensions in a later tutorial. By the way, if you want to get your head around all this music theory, do check out my book, How to Really Play the Piano. You need to be able to read fairly basic piano music to get the most out of it, but nothing super complicated in there, and it will help you make sense of music theory and improvisation and all the rest of it. Click the links either at the top of the screen, yeah, or right below this video to find out more. Okay, let's get back to our improvisation. Now that you know all that stuff about chords, something else you can try doing is dropping in a new chord in the left. This one, for example, G7. It's an extension of a regular G chord. Here's a shell that you could use in the left hand. Now remember, G is the number 5 chord in the key of C. So C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G. Okay, we might call it a dominant chord. Dominant chords, number 5 chords, are really important because they always want to drag us back to the tonic, to the number 1 chord, C in this case. Yeah, so G, G7 I'm playing there, C, 5, 1, dominant, tonic. Can you hear how strong that resolution between the two chords is? Now, in terms of our improvisation, you can either go straight from that G7 shell to the C major 7 shell, or if you want a really kind of cool and bluesy sound, you can go G7, F7, C major 7, which is, really, as I say, reminiscent of that 12-bar blues. Let me kind of demonstrate some of that for you. Again, I was getting into fairly tight time there, but don't tie yourself to a certain number of beats or a certain number of bars per chord unless you want to. Keep it as free and easy as you like, and just keep improvising over the top over and over and over again. As I said in the first tutorial, what I really want you to do here is to kind of get in the groove, to get a sense of flow. I said right at the start of the tutorial that I was going to tell you about how jazz piano improvisation actually works kind of in your head, as it were. If you watch a good jazz pianist or any kind of improviser, it looks like magic. You're like, OMG, how do they make that stuff up as they go along? But the thing is, they're not actually making it up as it goes along. Or rather, they are, but they're kind of working at a bigger, a more strategic scale than you might think. Jazz pianists kind of work from a mental toolkit of little segments and little snippets of music that they've developed and stored up, little riffs and runs, bits of scales. Some are really tightly defined, but others are pretty flexible. Now, when you're improvising, what you're basically doing is digging around in that box of tricks for the stuff that fits at any given moment and bolting those bits together to form an improvisation. Now, learning jazz piano is about developing your toolkit, but also learning to use it in a way that's smooth and seamless and controlled, in a way that flows, if you like. Now, if you're a gamer or a sports player or whatever, you might already know about flow. It's a feeling that you're in the groove, you're in the zone, that everything's going right. It's what psychologists and neuroscientists call a flow state. And that's what you're after when you're improvising. Yeah, you need to kind of get lost in it. So like I said in the first tutorial, getting the notes perfectly right isn't the most important thing. It doesn't matter if the toolkit that you're developing is a little rusty and a little incomplete to start with. When you start playing jazz piano, the main thing you're reaching out for, the main thing that you're chasing is flow. Okay, there we go. If you found this useful, don't forget to like the video, to subscribe to my channel, and to check out my book. Then get yourself to the piano and start chasing that flow. I'll see you next time.